Depending on who you are and what communities you inhabit, the image of a mushroom can be a few different things. For gamers, and even many non-gamers, there's no image more iconic than that of the super mushroom from the face of video games itself, Super Mario Bros. For those of a culinary persuasion, mushrooms are a staple topping of pizzas and other foods. And then there's the image of those who, well, probably need to be checked into rehab. Mushrooms have carved out a place in the realms of fantasy, cuisine, and other things. Sometimes these things cross over. In this video, I'll be retracing the lineage of all these different incarnations of the humble shroom, and not just as they pertain to culture, but all the way back to their conception. The idea of utilizing a magic mushroom to impart superhuman abilities onto Mario all stems from the original 1985 Super Mario Bros. For the NES, or the Famicom in Japan. The idea came about from the developers needing to thematically communicate to the player the idea of an item imparting power, to which they settled on a strange mushroom. The specific origin of a mushroom making someone grow big likely stems from Lewis Carroll's classic novel Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and every subsequent film adaptation, with Disney's being the most famous. Lewis Carroll's decision to include the mushroom as a powerful item can trace its inspiration back toward two different intertwining sources, folklore and science. Mushrooms had been a staple of mythologies all over the world by the 1800s, from Europe to Japan to the pre-colonial Americas, but the dominant incarnation is, of course, that of European mythology. In the annals of Western European folklore, fairies are heavily associated with the existence of mushrooms. Fairy rings, for example, were rings of mushrooms thought to be sprouted by dancing circles of fairies, and stepping within a circle would put one under their power. This belief dates back to the medieval period, and primarily existed within the British Isles. Other European cultures associated mushroom rings with witches or the devil more, and it's all these influences which cemented mushrooms as being magical items in popular culture. By the 19th century, however, advances in natural science and philosophy had given a new perspective on mushrooms, one that demystified their abilities and brought about scientific understanding of their biological properties. Both of these influences, originating from this transitionary time, could equally be responsible for Lewis Carroll choosing a mushroom as an item to initiate a sudden dramatic change meant to represent puberty in his story. The tradition of mushrooms as a food item dates back to ancient times, with the earliest evidence dating prior to the advent of agriculture about 12,000 years ago, and likely for millennia prior. Many far distant cultures were recorded to favor mushrooms as a delicacy, from the ancient Romans to the Chinese, and even cultures in the pre-colonial Americas. There exist many different species of edible mushroom, from the humble portobello to the classy truffle. The practice of using mushrooms as a topping for pizza doesn't have a clear source because, much like the pizza it's put on, mushrooms as a food item went through many different incarnations over the course of centuries, across many different cultures, primarily centered around the Mediterranean. But the image of mushroom pizza as we recognize it today can trace its roots back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Pizza in its modern form can trace back to Italian pizzerias from the early 19th century, but it wasn't until Italians began migrating to the United States around the turn of the 20th century that a great period of experimentation commenced. Chefs bringing over pizza recipes began experimenting with various toppings, of which mushrooms were just one of several that caught on, giving rise to the vast assortment of toppings enjoyed by pizza lovers and others. Psychedelic mushrooms are well known for their hallucinogenic properties, favored primarily by artists looking for creative inspiration. And looking at some of the works this has produced, it's easy to see the desire for them. The practice of using magic mushrooms stretches back thousands of years, but its modern widespread usage stems from one Harvard professor named Timothy Leary. After having an experience with shrooms himself in Mexico, Timothy became an advocate for the use of psychedelic shrooms in therapy. Word spread about the uplifting mental effects of these drugs, which led to their adoption among the youths of the counterculture movement of the 60s and 70s. Among many other heated topics, shrooms were a central conflict in this war between traditional values and those who sought to challenge the establishment. Focusing on the United States here, President Richard Nixon declared the War on Drugs in 1971 in response to the rise of substance abuse that had been growing in the wake of Timothy Leary's influence. This war is largely unresolved, with shrooms still in use, and the states of Oregon and Colorado even allow for supervised use of these substances in mental health treatment. But the use of psychedelic mushrooms stretches back thousands of years, across cultures the world over, from the ancient Greeks to Egyptians, from Mesoamerica to Scandinavia. Mushrooms were used in a variety of religious ceremonies and practices, often as a way to communicate with the gods of their respective pantheons, or at least believed to be gifts of power bestowed upon mortals by the gods. With the rise and spread of Christianity, however, came an end to these practices, as the use of these substances was seen as akin to practicing sorcery, which the Bible condemns, a belief that came into focus during the war on drugs, leading to interesting measures. And the reason why mushrooms have such a wide variety of uses and can be found the world over is due to the incredibly long, complex natural history of the kingdom of fungi, the clade within which all mushrooms exist, a clade stretching back billions of years. All mushrooms exist within the kingdom of fungi, itself one of the three main branches of the eukaryota, the other two being Plantae, covering all plants, and Animalia, covering all animals. This fundamental lineage of life can trace its origins back all the way to the Proterozoic eon, about 1.5 billion years ago. Over the course of millions of years and several geologic eras, fungi evolved, developed, and eventually colonized the land along with the animals and plants, settling into their role as decomposers of organic material to cycle nutrients back into the ecosystem. The earliest evidence of mushrooms with the actual mushroom cap that we're all familiar with can trace back to 115 million years ago, during the Cretaceous period, and is one of only 10 mushroom fossils ever found. Here we'll go over the origins of all the mushrooms we just discussed. The typical fantasy mushroom with the red coloration and white spots is based on the fly agaric mushroom, scientifically known as Amanita muscaria. And a very well-known fact about this genus is that many species are extremely toxic, while many others are valued as food, which makes the mushrooms in Mario a fitting representation, with both the super shroom and the poison shroom strengthening and weakening Mario, respectively. A few different species of mushrooms are favored for use as pizza toppings. Some of the most popular are the cremini, portobello, and white button mushrooms. The domestication of these specific species can be traced back a few hundred years ago in Europe, primarily around the Mediterranean. So it's no wonder that, by the time pizza started taking its modern form in what's now Italy, it was these mushrooms that would eventually end up as pizza toppings. Psychedelic mushrooms, or to be scientific, psilocybin mushrooms, are the primary source of all the shroom-induced hallucinations generations of wacky creative types have enjoyed. These mushrooms can be found the world over, with between 150 to 200 known genera. Most of them fall within the genus fittingly named psilocybe, and since most species evolved in the Americas and Europe, it makes sense that the perception of mushrooms being magical and granting extraordinary powers primarily stems from cultures in these parts of the world. From Earth's prehistoric past to the dawn of man and up to the present, Mushrooms have played a critical role in the functioning of our world and the development of human society as it's advanced and expanded in many diverse ways, from entertainment to food to recreational drugs. And no joke, I always get mushrooms on my pizza, so I have a lot to thank their existence for. Thanks for watching until the end. Any and all feedback is appreciated. We're looking to do more content like this, so let us know what we can do to improve it. Best wishes,